Last week, Venezuelans took to the streets to protest against President Maduro. President Nicolas Maduro has continued the policies of his predecessor, the late Hugo Chavez, called 21st century socialism. The U.S. State Department states these policies are characterized by an outsized role for the executive and centralization of state command over the economy. The socialists running Venezuela since elections in 1998 are reaping the economic turmoil their policies have sowed. Venezuelans are experiencing the world's fastest inflation, 56.3% in January, and shortages of everything, including food and medicine. Newspapers are unable to print due to a shortage of paper and ink. Other news media still operating have been intimidated. Maduro took a Colombian station, NTN-24, which you see here, off the air for covering protests. These scenes have probably not been seen on Venezuelan television, which is dominated by state-run channels and private networks afraid to criticize the government. The AP and other media organizations reportedly were roughed up by police who smashed or seized their cameras. Opposition political leaders have been charged with crimes and arrested. President Maduro has banned public demonstrations, and armed groups organized by the government called colectivos roam neighborhoods. President Maduro rules by executive decree. Last year, he officially withdrew from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, an act criticized as contrary to the Venezuelan Constitution and universally condemned by human rights organizations. Recently, the government issued an arrest warrant for the leader of the opposition party, Leopoldo Lopez. Protests erupted on February 12th and 13th, and 3 persons were killed and many others injured when protesters clashed with security forces. Many protesters were arrested and detained. To date, President Obama has made no comment. Secretary of State Kerry issued a statement on February 15th in reference to the government's response to peaceful protests, stating, "These actions have a chilling effect on citizens' rights to express their grievances peacefully." Otherwise, there has been no response by the American government to the oppression in Venezuela. These recent developments result from problems festering many years. Crime is rampant. In 2010, newspapers were ordered to stop publishing photos of dead bodies piled in a morgue which documented the seriousness of the problem. Lawlessness remains so rampant that the U.S. State Department issued a travel warning last November, stating, "Violent crime in Venezuela is pervasive. All U.S. personnel and their family members are required to take an armored vehicle when traveling to and from the airport." Today, the Venezuelan government released a statement from Southern Common Market country members, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. The statement says the organization rejects all acts of violence and condemns the destabilization attempts against the government of Maduro. Note, Venezuela holds the chair of this organization because of the suspension of Paraguay in 2012. For the poorest countries, cheap Venezuelan oil may explain these countries' support. Between 2007 and 2009, Chavez seized oil and other energy assets from private corporations. Oil has been used as a political tool. Last year, Venezuela was giving away around 1/3 of its oil production at below market prices to some Latin American and Caribbean countries. Perhaps the beneficiaries of the cheap oil are more interested in preserving their cheap oil supply than promoting human rights. Ideology is another explanation. Leftists abroad are following Maduro's lead in characterizing the protests as the product of right-wing interlopers intent on undermining the democratic institutions of Venezuela. Watch for American leftists to fall in line with this propaganda. Mainstream U.S. news media, which have largely ignored the diminution of civil liberties in Venezuela, will likely regurgitate this tale. Never mind that the rights of free assembly, free expression, and property rights have been eviscerated by the socialists. As long as he remains silent, President Obama shows himself to be unsympathetic to those protesting for human rights in Latin America. More protests are planned, and Maduro may react with greater force. As peaceful avenues for dissent are taken away, it is entirely foreseeable that Venezuelans will resort to force themselves to achieve political change if necessary.